17 of the fantasy football season, and if you made it to your championship, congratulations. So here's a few quarterbacks I have as sleeper options this week. In time of recording this video, none of these players have been placed on the safety or protocol list. The first guy, Trey Lance of the San Francisco 49ers. So Jimmy Garoppolo, he's banged up with multiple issues and injuries right now, and he didn't practice the first couple days of the week. Here is Jimmy G. So the few games Trey Lance started this season, it's been a mixed bag of results. Week 4 versus Seattle, 157 pass yards, 2 touchdowns, 41 yards rushing, and a 2-point conversion. Week 5 at Arizona, 192 pass yards, an interception, and 90 yards rushing for Trey Lance. And those were the 2 games where he had an extended playing time in those ball games. So right here with Jimmy G most likely out, Lance is going to start. And he's got a good matchup versus the Houston Texans that we know isn't a good defense. They give up a lot of points, and teams have been marching up and down the field versus this Texan defense this season. Right now, Lance is available in 80% of fantasy leagues. He has very good weapons in Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, and Brandon Ayuk starting to come around towards the end of the season here. But right now, if I'm in a pinch, I would definitely go out there and try to get Lance. We know you're going to get some extra bonus rushing points from Lance at least, and with the good weapons and a good matchup, he's definitely a quarterback in 2 quarterback leagues or deep 14, 16 team leagues. He's definitely a quarterback I would use and have some confidence week as a sleeper option. The next quarterback's Taylor Heineken of the Washington football team. So I know this Washington football team over the last few weeks here, they've been getting blown out, especially versus the Dallas Cowboys last week, 56-14. But I think Heineke's going to bounce back in this one. I know it's not the greatest of matchups versus the Philadelphia Eagles, but this Washington team here in a tough division game, I think they could put up some points and make a few plays. The last few games here for Heineke, week 13 at the Raiders, 196 pass yards, 2 touchdowns, an interception, 10 rushing yards. Week 14 versus the Dallas Cowboys, 122 pass yards, a touchdown, interception, a fumble loss, and a 2-point conversion. And then last week versus Dallas, 121 pass yards, a touchdown, and 2 windows. So this Cowboy front 7 was causing havoc early and often over the last 2 out of 3 games that we saw Heineke in. And he was getting thrown around by that defense. But I think here versus the Philadelphia Eagle defense, he can make a few plays here as Heineke. And he totally hasn't been that bad this season. Just the last 2 matchups versus the Cowboys, they've shut him down and given him a beating. But this week here versus Philly, I think he bounces back. And he's a decent sleeper option, available right now in 76% of fantasy leagues. And the third and final quarterback I have as a sleeper option this week, Drew Lock of the Denver Broncos. So I know Lock, he was a train wreck last week in that ball game at the Las Vegas Raiders, where he only had 7 fantasy points. So the last 2 weeks here for Lock, week 15 versus Cincinnati, 88 pass yards, a touchdown, a fumble loss. And week 16 at the Vegas Raiders, like I mentioned, a close ball game, but they lost 17-13. 153 pass yards and 10 rush yards. So this week here in a ball game, if they're going to have any chance, he's going to have to throw the ball 35, 40 times in this one is Lock, in my opinion. And the Chargers aren't the greatest of defenses. We saw last week Davis Mills, and this week Houston Texan offense shred them up for 41 points. So right here, they give up the 15th most fantasy points to quarterbacks on the season. Lock still has some playmakers, even though it's been all down years for Jerry Jeudy, Cortland Sutton, and Noah Fant. But this week here, I think he could put in a decent matchup. 200 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an into. And as a desperate sleeper option, I don't think it's that horrible. But his terms of trying to win a championship with him in a normal-sized league, it'll be tough. But if you're in a deeper league, a 2-quarterback league like I mentioned, or deep 16, 18-team league, it's a different story. And he's available in 98% of fantasy leagues. So that's a few quarterbacks I have as sleeper options for week 17 of the fantasy football season.